let's look at the election as it started this morning, Greg.
Yes.
We saw where when the president, where he exercised his franchise at his hometown, Daura.
Yes.
And some are criticizing how the president did his. He went to the polling booth with a wife, unlike what we had here in Edo State, where the governor allowed the wife to go first, and she did hers, and then came out, and before he went in. But it was seen that the president and the wife went at the same time and cast their vote at the same time, And there was another thing that was done by the president when he raised the ballot paper, So some have criticized that also. Some see it as a sign of campaigning. Some see it as a sign of intimidation. How do you greet this?
Well, we come from various cultural backgrounds. And then if you also look at the INEC cubicle, there are two sides. I don't know, because I didn't see it, whether the president went into one cubicle together. Because there's one cubicle this way, there's another one this way. And if the wife went to the other one, and then he went to one, the sanctity of their votes cannot be questioned. Then also, if he raised the paper and it did not show where he thumbprinted, I don't think there's any problem with that.
If he didn't show. Because what we saw was exactly the position where all we see, it was at the glare.
Why did he raise it? He also displayed it.
Displayed it.
If he thumbprinted and he showed where he thumbprinted or who he thumbprinted for, then there's a lot of question. Because one is against INEC regulation. The vote should be confidential and it should not be publicly displayed.
So is that way now, should it attract litigations?
Well, for whoever wants to litigate, let the person litigate.
But can they litigate against the president that has immunity?
No, you see, if they can litigate civil action, the president cannot incur criminal liability while he's in office, but it can be investigated. And the result of the investigation, if found to grant an offense, can be used against him when he leaves office. But that is not to say that if there is need for civil action, that maybe it cannot go on. He is only protected against criminal liability. And what I also want to say is this: the conduct of the election, to me, it has not been concluded. It's only when it's concluded that we can score INEC.
Okay.
No one says there cannot be pockets of violence. You know why I'm saying this? You see, in the last legislative election in the US, particularly in the state of Ohio, many of the machines did not work. And people had to drive 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles even.
This in a so-called developed polity.
Yes. I mean, what I'm saying, you can fact check. So right now, there are even litigations concerning that the machines did not work. On election day, there was a particular precinct. 80% of the machines did not work. It's technology.
But were they not able to rise to the occasion? Because that's the challenge that we are faced with in a developing country.
They were not able to rise to the occasion. And that is what is grounding a lawsuit or some lawsuits by the candidate that lost against the sitting governor. Because he had enough ground to say that, look, you ought to have made these things work. And even when they did not function, there was enough time for you to have brought in experts, which are provided for, budgeted for, and you did not do it. So,
but the case you just mentioned is like a case in 1,000 cases that were successful.
I agree. But what I'm saying, we have not had the result of the election. We don't know the percentage of places where such happens. So if it's unfortunate to happen in our own area, let's be a little bit patient. Don't forget, in the presidential election, the last presidential election that Jonathan contested, as a sitting president, the machine did not work. And when journalists interviewed him, he said Nigeria should be patient with INEC. While it was being fixed, he asked them, do I wait around or do I go home and come back? They told him he could go home and come back. But he looked at it. I think he sat in his car. And then later on, after some, this one called back. And then the machine worked. So I want to appeal to our people. Let us be resilient. And let us be forgiving of INEC. You know, if the hitches were not deliberate, where INEC cannot be forgiven, is where the hitches are deliberate.
Okay, we also saw reports where in Rivers State, where the governor, Nyesom Wike, voted. The governor also complained about the malfunctioning of the beavers to a point where he had to angrily, leave the polling unit. Again, some persons have criticized that aspect of the governor of Rivers State leaving the polling unit angry, as not being a leader by example in that regard. What do you advise, Ambanifo?
Yes, first of all, I want to draw your attention to my learned friend's submission about the president waiving his voters'
your bite on that.
card, before the public after thumb printing. What the president of Nigeria did was very, very bad. Was very, very wrong in the eyes of the law. Very, very, very wrong, because there is an INEC chairman who is umpire appointed by the president to conduct this election, so that any candidate that wins the election should be declared the winner by INEC. So the body language of the president, having thumb printed for his candidate of his party, then instead of him dropping the voter's card inside the box, he displayed it for Nigerians to see.
Maybe he mistook it for a trophy.
He was campaigning.
He displayed it for his
Is it not possible he
for
mistook it
the
a
whole
trophy?
nation to see that the action of the president amounted to undue influence on the INEC chairman.
Simple.
And like my next friend said in that regard, he's correct. It can attract civil litigation against the president. Yeah. So what he was saying was, as a president, probably cannot institute a criminal action against him because of immunity. But it can attract civil litigation against the president purely anchored on undue influence. Because what it means that he has told the INEC chairman, look at my candidate, look at where my interest lies. And then he who pays the piper, as they say, dictates his tune. So if you are the INEC chairman, you'll be very, very apprehensive to announce any other candidate the winner of this election.
Okay, but we are coming from a perspective where a lot of persons have been saying that the president, due to the body language that they perceived he was giving, was not really in support of the party's presidential candidate. So could that also be another reason why he had to, raise it?
Well, all these are
to authenticate he is voting for
everything.
the party's candidate.
Everything Nigerians heard about the body language of the president was all mere hearsay. It was mere speculations. But what happened today in Daura was very unfortunate and was very, very unpresidential. I believe, I also expect that AG Federation should be able to probably talk to the president. Nigeria is a country that's guided by the laws. And if you go through the Electoral Act, am I correct?
Yes.
There's no place it was stated that after thumb printing, you should bring it out and show it to the whole world before you now drop it. For the person of the president to have done so, it amounts to undue influence. He ought not to have done that. Then let me come into the case of Wike of Rivers State. And if you, as a governor of a state, he is supposed to be the father of the state. And so if you go to a polling unit and machine is not functioning, you are expected to calm down and then hear from the INEC officials. So if you storm out of that place, it does not make you a very good leader. And so
that's a bad example.
Yes, the action of Wike was quite unacceptable, quite not expected of a governor of a state. Okay. Yes, so he ought to have waited. Again, the non-functionality of those beavers machine today at the polling unit also shows how unprepared we Nigerians are. Because as at yesterday, or as at last week,
not Nigerians, so INEC.
As at last week, INEC ought to have tested all those machines.
Of course, they conducted a mock exercise.
So
and in the mock exercise, it was appreciably demonstrated as working optimally. And so, we even heard reports where it was said that even the officials, the polling unit officials, even applauded it, that the facial captures are even more effective, more effective than that of the fingerprint captures. So that went a long way to score the process in that mock exercise as very, very commendable, and an opportunity as a model, that will bring about integrity and knock off all of these issues about what could not be clear or seen as a process that could be seen as free and fair.
Yeah.
But again, some could also say, could this be a calculated attempt to manipulate the process?
Well, like my late friend said, it would be too premature to talk about whether the process is being, whether it was an attempt to manipulate or not. But all we're saying is that it only shows the unwillingness of Nigerian institutions to deliver.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, beavers, this is the first time the INEC is making use of beavers. And so we expected that before now, INEC ought to have, run some mock, testing.
Which they did.
With the machine, at least not once, not twice, not twice, to check these machines and see if they have some technical, if they're going to have some technical hitches.
Yes.
Okay.
But that was not done. And if it was done, it was not sufficiently done.
Okay, let's take your response in these questions concerning the president. He's voting in his hometown and the wife, alongside Nyesom Wike's reaction.
Firstly, the president has laid a negative precedent. Governor Nyesom Wike has laid a negative precedent. And I do hope that other leaders that will come after them will not take that line of reasoning. Because, one, the Electoral Act and the rules that governs INEC and this election, the 2023 general elections, provide for what is called secret ballots. In the words of my learned friend here, he said cubicle, 2 cubicle. Why? It was for A not to see B or B not to see A. That is the reason for it. So if both of them go and they stay apart in the 2 cubicle, quotes now, and they vote, and you quietly, secretly drop it in the box and leave.
Okay, but doesn't the electoral law also capture the aspect of married couple being one? Because according to what it says, the two shall come together to be one.
1 + 1 is
so
1 + 1
isn't
is
that
what?
possible that that could be another way out?
Philip, in arithmetic, 1 + 1 is what? 2. So in election, 1 + 1 is 2.
But in the laws of marriage, 1 + 1 is 1.
In this instance, it is not 1.
That's
so
okay
for both of them to go, I do not know the reason why the president has done that. Maybe the president wants to display to Nigerians that, look, I love my wife better than other persons. But that is not the issue here just now. The issue here just now is that the president has flagrantly violated the provisions of the Electoral Act. That is the position. Then two, for the president, for Governor Nyesom Wike, he has morally, I repeat, morally incited Nigerians against INEC, because the beavers machine was brought by INEC as provided for by the Electoral Act, and being a leader in that instance, all he ought to have done was to go there. Okay, just like we talked of then President Goodluck Jonathan, be patient and even take a step further to advise the electorate there, the voters there, please be patient, the thing will come up, because technology can fail at any time, science can fail at any time. The only being that cannot fail is God. That is the truth. So he should have been an instrument of encouragement to the voters. However, be it as it may, he has done what he wants to do. That shouldn't be why we are talking so much. But the anticipation of Nigerians just now is to see that these elections is free, fair, and credible.
Thank you.
Nigerians do not expect 100% from INEC, but Nigerians expect sufficient percent wherein it can be free. 100% is an A, 70% is an A. Is that not? So if the elections is free, fair, and credible, then we are home and dry. And I think by 2027 we'll start from here.
Well, it's Independent Television Nigeria Decides live studios, and we're looking at updates coming. I did say that you can also make your responses over what we have been the presidential election alongside the National Assembly elections today. Make your reactions noted by sending your responses or calling the number 0807 777 0300, and as soon as we get that, we'll bring that to you. But let's look at this aspect of the collation, because it's one thing after we've gotten it right in terms of voting, it's expected that there will be collation, and you know what transpires, you know, between the part of the polling units figures being transmitted electronically, you know, to the portals of Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and we expect that there will be speedy announcement of results. But again, questioning this aspect, the INEC chair made it clear that there will be speedy announcement of results, but he declined from giving us the number of days it's going to take or the number of hours, but he said it's going to be speedily announced. Now, what do you think could portend between the point of collation and electronically transmitting figures?
Yes. I think what the INEC chairman was trying to do was actually play safe, because there can be logistics problem. There can be, today nobody expected rain, but it rained cat and dogs. Yesterday it also rained cat and dogs.
Really don't understand how this rain came.
We don't know how the rain came. Whether it was conjured by politicians or voters, oh my God, we do not know. But all we know is that rain came, and it came in very good measure. Well, maybe it was to calm down the tension that was on ground.
No, if it was yesterday's own,
Yes.
we can say calm down. But today's own, it should have been a fair day without having a drop of rain.
The sun was very hot. Very, very hot.
Okay.
Well, good enough. It fell towards the later part of the day.
Okay.
And what I want to say is that the collation centers are just a kind of calculation of results already given. Because INEC made it clear that the results should be announced at the various polling units. And where I voted, that was precisely what happened. You know, at the end of the voting, when everybody there had already voted, I mean, in the presence, in the full glare of everyone, you know, counting was done. To ascertain the number of people that voted, to see if there was overvoting, and then also to now begin to sort the result for this one, for this party, and so on. So I would say that everybody can actually have the result before collation. So I think...
So it will be difficult for anything to go wrong.
Difficult for any... And also, beside the counting at the polling units, they are electronically transmitted to the portal of INEC. I think it will be very difficult and foolhardy even for anybody to try to manipulate the result. I'm really sorry for those that went to snatch
Still ballot boxes.
ballot boxes. Because it don't help you, and it don't help your candidate. It don't help anyone. It's a question of, well, if it's not my own, you know who it's. So, but I think we should grow above that. So between the polling units and the collation center and transmission of results to INEC, I think there will be little anyone can do. I don't doubt the capacity of the human mind to invent evil.
Okay, but we understand that even the ballot boxes,
Yes.
as we look at the development of the beavers, the ballot boxes wouldn't deter, genuinity of the results. But again, don't you think that could also hamper, the success, achieved in such polling units? Because the Electoral Act seems to frown at a unit where there was violence. And what does it have to say concerning such areas where there were violence? Does it mean that the figures will still count?
If they had concluded voting before the snatching, I don't think there will be anything they can do. But if they have not concluded voting, there's a provision that there can be a rerun in those units. If the number of people who have not voted are going to have substantial impact on the outcome of the election in that area. So I would really not encourage anybody to go into the enterprise. It's not profitable, and it's not safe. You might get shot, you might even injure your candidates and all that, because you don't know whether your candidate is actually the one who even won before you start stealing the ballot box. And if you are doing double thumb printing, it's not going to work, because it will not be recognized by beavers, it will not count. So I just want to appeal to people. We've been this way before. It wasn't good for us, and it wasn't safe. Let us have a change. Let's do elections very well, and then we'll have credibility. Other countries in Africa, I'm not talking of Europe, they have done it, and they are existing. Why can't we do it? Nigeria has the capacity. Nigeria has the will. Because if you look at the turnout today, you see, Philip, it was massive, very massive. In my own words, they had to split the word, the from letter O, and distribute them because there was no space.
Okay. Let's look at the aspect of tackling insecurity. Now, we know in the East, there have been challenges, and there was this report that we also had where it was said that some communities, in Imo State, were still not able to exercise their franchise early enough or not at all as a result of non-availability of election materials. Now, being that as it is, that's another challenge. But some have said that this could be another way of, undermining the popularity of certain candidates. What do you have to say?
It's his state. He's from Imo. He's from Imo.
And that's why the question is coming to you.
Yeah, they were right.
Let me answer that question. Well, the truth of the matter is this, before I come to Imo State, let me treat the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Yeah, the question of insecurity in this country, to me, is not a problem if the federal government wants to tackle it. The smallest problem you can check in this country is insecurity. One, we have the service providers, we have MTN, we have Glo, we have, what do you call it, Airtel and all that. Again,
the NIN.
Yeah, then NIN, which we were told that once you acquire it, you can always be tracked from any location and all that. We have NIN. Again, what can solve this problem is satellite. Nigeria is an oil producing country. I don't know what to cost Nigeria to install a satellite in the sky. Of course, you are aware that in Europe and the US, you can't commit any crime and get out of it. They will track you with the satellite. Like this issue of ballot snatching and all that.
Of course, yes.
If Nigeria has its own satellite, all you need is to monitor it from the base. You can pick that person and then get to know who the person is and everything without bothering yourself. It happened in Turkey when the Saudi journalist went into Saudi embassy in Turkey. Khashoggi. And when Khashoggi went to that embassy, from what he couldn't go home, and they were not looking for him. But the wife told security agents that the man told her that he was going to Saudi embassy in Turkey. And so when police went there, the Saudi authorities denied that Khashoggi didn't come to the embassy that day. So what the Turkish police did was to go back to their system through the help of a satellite, and they were able to see Khashoggi entering the embassy. So they played the video for the Saudi officials and say, this man entered this embassy at so and so time. But the man did not leave the embassy after entered the embassy. So at that point, that Saudi officials at the embassy agreed or accepted the fact that actually the man entered the embassy. And so now where is the man? The man was killed, and from the report given, was allegedly killed, and thereafter the man couldn't come out. So without satellite, the whole world wouldn't have known what happened to Khashoggi. And it is important to note that those officials who were involved in that tragedy was equally taken back to Saudi Arabia for trial and all that. So if such facility is available, how much does it cost? And so what does it cost take the Nigerian government to install a satellite, and whatever happens here, you can easily track it? It's unlike the train hijack that happened last year in Nigeria, when that train was hijacked and all that.
You mean the Kaduna Abuja?
The Kaduna Abuja, yes, train hijack. And then after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, those people were calling for ransom. And so if there's a satellite, that wouldn't have been an issue. Those guys will be picked up anywhere they are. And so if the federal government wants to solve the problem in Nigeria, Imo State and any other state has a very simple issue. They're coming to the election today.
Yes,
and the communities,
the political angle.
Yes, well, community that
in Imo State.
In Imo State. As we speak, it is important to note that most communities in Imo State is being occupied by the so-called unknown government. The citizens from those communities can't even access their communities. So it is very impossible for election to take place in those communities. So it was not a matter of trying to stop any candidate from having more votes. I think it's a matter of flashpoints.
Are you saying that these communities or the units are scattered across these communities could be units that were cancelled, or that INEC said there were no presence of registered voters? Because that's not the case.
No, that's not the case. But I am aware that
what we saw today was that in some areas, just like we had it in some polling units across the country, where there were no election.
Let me be specific here. In some communities,
what will now happen to such areas?
In some communities,
because we remember vividly, even when the INEC chair was also talking about the need for elections to hold in such areas, that not until the last voter is attended to, there's not going to be end of election. So what will now happen? Does it mean that it's possible we could be having election taking place in some places as we speak right now?
Yes.
Which is just
the security report is saying that in some communities in Olu Zone, they're not accessible. Olu Zone in particular, some flash points in Olu Zone cannot be accessible. I'm not aware of other communities that INEC was talking about. But I think we are very much sure that in most communities in Olu Zone, where the governor came from, most communities in that area are not accessible.
Okay. Can we get your bite in that?
Well, for me, the nature of insecurity we have in Nigeria, to my mind, is political, religious, and ethnical. That is the kind of insecurity we have. And that is why it is difficult to undo. Look, let me tell you, Philip, crime has gone beyond native reasoning. So, if you want to tackle it, you need technology or science or both knowledge to tackle it. And in a situation where we shy away from reality and begin to chase shadows, we have this kind of situation. That takes my mind back to the promise made by INEC. INEC told us we are ready. INEC told us there is this synergy between we and the security agencies. In 2015, then President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan saw that election could not hold in some parts of Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria. What happened? The election was shifted by 3 weeks. And the security agencies were encouraged And before you know it, they were able to ensure that that environment or that area was cleansed. And elections were held in that place. As at 6th of January 2023, I was at Olu. And there, I had a matter there. Then I was made to understand that 25th February 2023 has been declared sit-at-home day. So, since January, if the federal government, the security agencies, I want to believe they have this information.
Okay,
because
okay, let's